Okay, so welcome back to another episode of the Bless Show. Today I have a special guest, a friend of mine, Matthew Alexander. Welcome.
Thank you. It's fantastic to kind of catch up with you after a while as well. It's been a moment, but
has been a while.
A pleasure.
Firstly, thank you for letting us use your awesome space, bro. Like as I was saying, like you got a proper apartment, very, very nice, very fancy. So thank you.
Oh, of course.
Appreciate it.
Some extra camera angles, which will be super nice.
Unreal.
So,
Walked in here. I walked in here. I was like, dude, I'm supposed to do the setup, and my setup is like nothing compared to this. Like we're shooting 4K, bro. Proper cameras. So thanks for that as well. Got proper lighting, so it's unreal. If you're watching this, be grateful. We're using proper stuff today. How are you doing?
Good. No, it's been a manic couple of months, but keen to get into Cape Town summer, which is a pleasure. I'm sure you're enjoying it after
it's been unreal.
The Amsterdam weather. So no, this is it's nice going to the summer sort of season. So it's epic, but solid.
That's good. And just before we start, so the viewers get like an understanding or slight understanding, who's Matt and where's Matt from?
Matt is supposedly me, having a bit of an identity crisis every now and then. But Matt originates from Joburg, so grew up there. First 18 years of my life, a very big swimming background while I was growing up that side, and then came down to Stellenbosch to do my studies at Stellenbosch University. Did a molecular biology and biotechnology degree. And then promptly thereafter dove into the world of content creation, and I've kind of been gunning in that direction ever since. So Matt is kind of deciding what he wants to do with life, but trying a lot of different things and just being myself.
Absolutely. That's also fun to give life a shot, at different things. What made you want to come down to Stellenbosch and leave the north?
Everyone always asks, what I like about Joburg, and it's impossible to actually give an answer. But I loved my time.
But
is
that
amazing.
Question now being in Cape Town that is difficult to answer, or?
I think being in Cape Town changes your perspective a little bit. I think because I was there my whole life, like you never really sort of like registered that. It's kind of just like, okay, cool, Joburg is Joburg. These are my mates, these are my schoolmates. Every now and then we go on a school trip to Durban, epic. Warmer weather there, fantastic. But coming down to Cape Town, I think the lifestyle is just very sort of different, a little bit slower, but also a bit more enjoyable. There's so much to kind of offer, hikes here, mountains there, everything like that. So coming down, I think growing up in school, I was always dead set on going over to the States. I was keen on, okay, cool, I want to go to one of the American universities, do my swimming stuff there.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of high school, with just all the different logistics and stuff that went into that, I don't know how, but just ended up settling kind of on the Western Cape sort of region. Didn't even apply to UCT, but landed up in Stellies, and so grateful that I did.
Yeah.
Family promptly followed me down from Joburg to Wellington area afterwards. I've kind of been in Western Cape since then, and it's a pleasure. Like the weather's fantastic, people are friendly, it's epic.
That's awesome.
I don't know if you had a similar experience coming down from KZN side.
No, so for me, I was always, we're going to touch into the sport now with you as well, because essentially when I started this podcast, it was based around people, just candid conversations, but it was sportsmen's initially, people that like played sport, had a similar interest as me, so it was easier to talk to people, and I enjoyed talking to people who studied, played good sport. But anyway, so when I came down because I got a cricket bursary with Marty's. And at the time, I always had bursaries throughout school. My parents couldn't afford school for me, so I always had cricket or sports bursaries throughout school. And I applied to Pretoria, applied to UCT, applied to Stellenbosch, applied to Korfsies for sports bursary. And Marty's came back. I got into my degree I wanted to do, got into Reds, and got a sports bursary. It was a no-brainer. I didn't really want to go to Marty's because I'm Zulu. English is my first additional language. I never took Afrikaans at school. Never really was like in major Afrikaans environment. So I felt like I would be sort of blocked or sort of stereotyped in a certain way, and I wouldn't fit in. So I worried about that. So I didn't really want to come. But after 2 days of being here in Stellenbosch, I was like, this was a blessing in disguise. Like probably the best 5 years of my life. Like I highly recommend it and send my kids there. So I came down because of uni and getting a bursary. So that's why I came down. But you did swimming.
Yeah, so that was, even at university days, swam quite a bit as well, but there a little bit less competitively. But especially in the high school sort of days, I was very, very serious about it. That was pretty much every week's schedule is, 4:30 wake ups, 5 to 7 in the pool, school until 2:30 odd, then rush a couple of extra classes, then rush through to the gym from like 4 to 5:30, pool from 5:30 to 7:30, and it was rinse and repeat for pretty much the whole week until a monster Saturday sort of session. So it was an all-consuming sort of endeavor, especially in the swimming field. It's a very unforgiving sort of sport. I think it's one of the few things where if you're racing 50 meters, you're training 50 kilometers kind of every week as a discipline. So, but it was a kind of core facet of how I kind of grew up, and I think really helped instill a lot of discipline and kind of drive when pursuing certain sort of goals through the sort of high school sort of years, which I think are very formative. So it was an incredible blessing to have that as part of my life, and still I hop in the pool quite often. So it's a nice thing. Not in the best of shape anymore, but used to be one of the fittest guys.
You went for a run yesterday and Matt was gassing it.
I was trying to gas it, and then I gassed myself, and guys ended up giving me a hiding at the last bit. We came up this massive hill up, where was the Kloof, and then I was feeling a little bit brave, so I kind of gave it for a K or two, and then promptly saw my ass, and you went trotting off into the distance. So
it was good.
Humbled me, but it was nice.
No, I enjoyed it. Did you have massive? Obviously, swimming, it was a big part of your life. Like, as you said, now that discipline that you got from being at gym at a certain time, training twice a day, has now infiltrated into the rest of your life. That discipline, which I love about sport, like I love about running as well. Like that type of discipline filters into the rest of your life. Like you start performing well outside of like physical activity, like mentally, spiritually, whatever. Did you have like big dreams, aspirations to become a professional athlete?
I did, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it now because obviously it hasn't panned out exactly. But no, that was the obsessive sort of dream. I think a lot of guys,
a lot of us have that. Yeah,
you believe you can be the one to make it, and
you're going to be the next Macantini. When I was growing up,
exactly. Yeah, I was getting the Michael Phelps spiel at school, so it was a humbling sort of reality when you don't necessarily get all the way there. But I think the pursuit of it is such a wonderful experience as well. But definitely had the goals, had the ambitions. So I think you were probably very similar with.
Absolutely.
Sight set on Protea's dreams. And
absolutely. Like you look at now the guys you played with, like with age groups, they're like playing Proteas, you're like, damn, we play together, But okay, so then when did you realize that, look, unfortunately, this dream of mine, it's just not going to happen? Because I hit a moment, 2016. It's like, yeah, this is it.
Swimming, I think for me it was potentially.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Siri's going to tell us when we faded in our sports hopes and dreams. Swimming for me, I think it was actually a little bit earlier. The intensity sort of the training regimens is also very influenced by the coaching sort of sphere that you're in and the group of guys that you're with. And in South Africa, we don't necessarily have the resources available that somewhere in the States do or somewhere in Australia does. So it's very impacted by the squads that you're kind of in the high school sort of areas. And I was very lucky. I was in a very intense sort of training group, but it wasn't quite at the level where it's going to push you kind of over that threshold. I think with most professional sports, especially in the men's arena, sort of the age of peaking is, 25, 26-ish. So there's still a long sort of period to go, but you really need that building blocks in the like early teens sort of phase to get there. Like, if you read any of the stories about the Michael Phelps journeys or the Ian Thorpe journeys or Chad Leclerc's journeys, they are going at it from a very early age and are borderline Olympic level before they even reaching the end of high school. So I got to the stage when I was about 15, 16 where I realized, okay, cool, I'm not necessarily in the right training environment, and try to make a few coaching changes then. But unfortunately, some of the coaching blocks are very selective in that they can only fit so many people. So 100%. It was a bit too late. And then with not going over to the States, it was kind of, okay, cool. How can I start shifting my priorities away from being this obsessive about this one particular thing and potentially translate that say intensity over to kind of different areas of my life.
Okay.
So it was around then, but still very, very serious until kind of the end of high school, and then university it was fun to give it another push.
You swam for Marties as well?
Yeah, we did swim for Marties, and we had some incredible swimmers kind of with us. One or two, nudge Emma, if you watch this anyway, who actually went to the Olympics as well, which is super, super inspiring to see.
Yeah.
And a really, really strong group of swimmers kind of around us going to nationals and all of that. But again, I don't think the intensity there, or more importantly, the politics didn't necessarily align to having the most competitive environment to really, really take it forward kind of beyond the university sphere.
And when you were there, did you realize that? Or was it something that now you can sit back in hindsight and be like, yeah, we could have pushed a bit more, we could have trained a bit harder?
Pretty early on, I think it was coming to Stellenbosch was just a whirlwind of so many different things. I think you experienced it as well in the residence structure, in that there's now a lot of other things happening as well.
100%.
Where for the first, I think, 3 months of coming into uni, I didn't even get to go to any swimming training things with the Maltese squads, just because we were so busy with res activities, with all the different welcoming procedures and marching up and down and registering for courses and all of that. And then when kind of kicked back into the swimming sphere, I was kind of a bit out of it. And then also they had a very different training approach to what I was used to in Joburg, where Joburg was almost like Russian military sort of approach, where you're just doing mileage until your body's falling apart.
You're done.
Whereas here was a lot more focused on kind of recovery and lesser training sessions, which for me felt a bit underwhelming.
Okay.
I think it was very effective for certain people, but it was different from the approach that I sort of have. So I think my mindset sort of changed to, okay, cool, this isn't as intense and it's not pushing me to my limits. And then, obviously just going through it, once you've kind of fallen off for a year odd, it's very difficult to kind of pick back up that intensity. So then focus more on enjoying it and really still being very competitive, but more focusing on the enjoyment aspect of the swimming team.
And it was one of the things which I found difficult, we'll touch on, was that being a student athlete was tough, man. It was demanding. Like I studied in engineering, so I needed to be in class most of the time. I had a TAT test most of the time afterwards and every day, and then I'd have either a strength and conditioning session in the morning and then a field session in the evening, or a strength and conditioning session in the morning, a mental session in the evening, like 4 or 5 times a week, and then you play the whole day Saturday. Some days we started playing time cricket. Time cricket, when you play, it's like test cricket, but just 2 days or 2 innings. The 2 innings can happen in a day, but the 2 innings can happen in 2 days. So you play Saturday, Sunday. When do you rest?
No, it kind of takes it out of you. And especially, like you said, engineering is one of the most demanding sort of degrees. And you're busy until like from 8 to 5 kind of thing. If you've got a half day, that's a blessing. It's not a lot of the other degrees, no bashing on them, but it's a little bit easier scheduling wise. So I had the BSc sort of route under me. So it's similar-ish sort of experience where it's kind of, 9 to 5 every day sort of thing, or 8 to 5. So balancing that with the intensity needed to really take the sport up a level, I think as you would have experienced, it's a difficult thing to kind of balance.
100%. So you then obviously went on to graduate with a BSc in molecular
biology and biotechnology.
Jeez, bro, that's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful, but easier to do than to say.
Did you do honors as well for it?
No, so I stopped after my undergrad. I think
it's a 4-year degree, yeah?
Yeah, it was a 3-year degree.
Okay.
It's not like the engineering with the master or the honors is kind of bundled into it. It's kind of, you've got to do bit by bit by bit.
Yeah.
The initial idea was to do that undergrad and then hop over to the States and do a postgrad in some kind of chem eng or something like that. But it was a mix of kind of being uninspired by the degree and excited about pursuing other things towards the end of it, where I wanted to kind of dip into the waters of entrepreneurship a little bit, but also I didn't really think that the academic environment was as stimulating as I'd hoped it to be. It felt a lot more like parrot learning and regurgitation the whole way through, rather than any actual application. Obviously, I think it changes a lot once you get into the masters and the doctorate sort of levels. But for me, I just didn't feel like it was going to take me in the direction to pursue that area of life in the way I wanted to.
Yeah. So we all, like, I'm pretty sure your parents also said to you, okay, you go to uni, get the degree.
You get the degree, then you can do what you want.
Yeah, okay, at least they said you do what you want. So, which we're sitting here now, and you don't, your profession is not anything in BSc, molecular.
Bit of a left turn.
We sit here today, and you've seeked and you've taken the leap. And I've actually been fortunate enough to be there to see when you started to where you are today. Yes, I've been obviously from a distance now, having moved over. But when you initially started, I was there and I saw you start. And we sit here today, and I can considerably say that you're doing well. And I know that there's higher heights you're going to reach. You've broken the mold of saying, okay, bro, you study engineering, go be an engineer, which I sit as right now. But I enjoy it, which for me is a blessing. But you realize that wasn't obviously stimulating for you. You took the leap Talk us through that, man. Like,
Yeah,
tell us what you do.
It's more a case of not wanting to get a job, maybe not being wanted to have to being told what to do. But also there's an amazing sort of freedom and responsibility that comes with kind of just going and building your sort of own thing. It's a big left turn kind of coming out of the university structure and kind of having a sort of career path kind of in the pipeline, and then deciding, okay, cool, now I'm going to go build something completely from scratch that is in a completely different domain. So obviously we're essentially trying to build a tech platform that connects freelance photographers and videographers to clients for all sorts of different things, which has also meant that we've really explored the world of content creation as photographers and videographers a lot, which is obviously nothing to do with science.
Yes.
Other than the science behind camera technology, but nothing to do with my degree, with molecular stuff whatsoever. So it's been daunting and scary, but also incredibly exciting and rewarding. More so to know that whatever happens, it's kind of my responsibility. So if it goes well, it's because gotten quite lucky along the way, but also it's been a lot of hard work that kind of pushes it to that level. But also if it doesn't go well, it's kind of directly my fault. So I've got a lot of, hopefully, control into how we actually do things. Similar to the sports sort of arena, it's kind of about how hard you work. So are you willing to put in the effort day in, day out, or not? Which is really, I think, the main differentiator into whether you get lucky and make it.
So the company is called Curate.
Curate, yeah. So our tagline is kind of content creators curated for you. So we essentially view ourselves kind of as the people that do the connecting between any sort of clients and creators, and hopefully make their lives a lot easier along the way.
And how is that industry? How competitive is it?
Depends who you ask. It's such a wide industry as well.
I'm asking you.
Asking me. Okay, so I think there's a lot more abundance in the industry than people realize. So it's coming from the world of sort of freelancing. I think a lot of people can be in the mindset of, it's me against the world, and every other person who's doing this kind of as a career, as a competitor. But I don't view it as that at all. I think it's just there are so many different avenues and opportunities for people to create things really and tell stories, because that's what it is at the end of the day, that there's such an amazing community to kind of be derived from the whole sort of environment. And there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration, for working together, and for building things not just as individuals kind of all over the place, but really a whole structured sort of community in the industry. If you kind of look at the world, or the way the world is going, in my opinion, there's the traditional sort of overview of everything, where there's been television commercials and the structured sort of content industry. But there's also this new wave that has kind of come up with our kind of generation, in a sense, with the advent of social media and its impact on how everything is consumed in the world, where now, no matter what you are or how you're trying to do things, you need to have something to give to the world, and you need a way to show the world what 100%. You have. And that showing the world what you have is really an amazing avenue for storytelling to really expand and grow so much. And the whole sort of content industry, especially needing people to help you create that content, is something that is just growing and growing and growing. And kind of the advent of AI and stuff is just going to take that to a new level, where suddenly you're not limited by just being in one geographical location or just having one angle on something. Suddenly you're going to be able to just multiply that and really just, showcase what you have to show the world in so many different ways. So I think it's to come back to the circling around to the question, I think there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of avenue for growth, collaboration, etc., and just a very exciting industry that will continue growing going forward.
When you started Curate, you started freelancing first.
Kind of. It was a bit of a mix. How I kind of got into it was watching a couple of YouTube videos, kind of in between not paying attention to lectures, of just like travel things, of like people going on those like GoPro adventures and like traveling Bali and all those places, and be like, wow, this is so cool, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Obviously not having the skills or the equipment to do any of that.
Money as well.
Yeah, no, that was a continual problem. And then going on a couple of different hikes and adventures and stuff. And then our mutual friend Max, he had quite a nice camera setup, so we started taking a few photos and posting that a little bit more. I managed to save up and get a GoPro at the end of my first or second year, I think it was. And then kind of got into just creating my own little videos here and there. And then,
so you don't, a lot of people think that you need flipping Sony A7 IVs or like expensive equipment to start.
phones now are so much better than anything was pretty much like 5 years ago. So whatever you've got, as long as you've got a creative angle and just a kind of something to show, that's how you, also the first like 100 or so videos or anything that you try and make are generally going to be terrible. Not necessarily by your standards, but by objective standards of you looking back later. They're going to look. I look at some of the old things I made. I was like, oh my goodness, that is terrible.
Yeah.
But slowly but surely you build up that skill set. So it's just about starting, no matter what sort of equipment and stuff that you have. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's continual improvement.
It's a story you tell.
Exactly. If you look at, like, I think Casey Neistat in the YouTube sense was one of the guys to completely reinvent that space, where he suddenly took the whole professional aspect and just turned it into entertainment and vlogging and raw and kind of unfiltered.
Yeah.
And that's become a whole sort of genre in itself. So there's so many different ways that you can show things that it really doesn't matter what you have or how you do it. It's just about finding your own creative spin on showcasing that.
Absolutely. But so you saved up for GoPro, and then that's where the ball started.
Started from there, and then just kept watching more videos about how to edit, how to do this. And then kind of John, the co-founder with me with Curate, he was taking quite a few photos and stuff for res events and stuff like that. And then obviously with the res structure, it was so nice and such a nice environment for like just idea generation and collaboration and entrepreneurship sort of sense. That we eventually got to chatting and found out about his original vision of how Curate was to operate, which was to obviously connect people to each other. And then eventually got a camera of my own, I think end of 2018, and then started taking a few, just for a bit of extra kind of pocket change, a few like dances here or 21st here or there, and then kind of just built from there. And then kind of went into it first wanting to build the actual tech platform, but then enhancing our skills as we went along as actual creatives ourselves to really understand the mindset of what it takes to be sort of in the industry. So that's kind of how the journey started, but it was initially prompted by just fun adventure videos.
So it wasn't like you guys saw a gap in the market and said, hang on, there's a link missing here for this platform, this tech platform where we can link these two people together. It was just through what you guys enjoyed doing. It wasn't because there was a gap in the market when you started.
I think the gap was really coming from the environment that we were sort of in, where there were a couple of res events where suddenly they ask you to be a photographer for a house dance or something, but you've got a test on the next day, so you can't do it, but you say, okay, I've got a mate, he can help you out. And then, that person, you connect them to do that. All of a sudden you're like, something here.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily always available. There are other people I know that are available. How can we formalize this into a system that enhances the experience of both the person looking for someone to capture content for them and the people who are busy but or available but might not necessarily have the network available to connect them to the right people for that. So that's kind of where the gap sort of emerged, and the kind of seed of the whole idea kind of grew from there.
Okay. Who's currently your biggest competitor?
There's so many different types of competitors that we kind of look at. So you've got the massive international players like a Fiverr or an Upwork. But that's different.
They
in
pump a lot of money into their creators.
100%, but also they're so widely spread that it's, if you're looking for an actual photographer or a videographer, particularly on that, it's such a watered down experience that you don't get the specificity that's needed to actually execute in a project effectively. So they cater for anything and everything, from graphic designers to, I don't know,
whatever.
I don't know if they do plumbers or something like that, but
who knows?
Yeah, they do a lot. So it's just so wide that it's just not niche down enough for I think it to actually be effective, similar to something like Upwork. And then on the opposite side of that, you get like your typical creative agencies that have like 5 people, full-time employees that work for them that operate almost as a production house, and they might be like super specified at product videos only for shampoo bottles.
Yeah.
So they might be way too niche down and so tied into where they are geographically that it's difficult and very rare that you'd actually need them specifically.
Yeah.
So kind of the middle ground of that is something that is wide and generic, and being able to provide any photographer and videographer for the most appropriate sort of project that comes along, but also having the niche down aspects where if you've got specific details in a project, it can actually be pulled off without it being a complicated system.
Yeah. No, understood. So you guys have been running for 3-4 years?
Yeah, so I'm going to say beginning towards the middle of 2019 was when kind of after studies kind of just went at it sort of full time. Obviously, the ideation kind of started quite a while before then, early in or through the residence days. But since mid sort of 2019, been giving it a full tilt effort, and obviously navigating through COVID and stuff has been interesting, and shifting to a couple of different office spaces along the way, and growing with different team members. It's been exciting and scary, but continuing along the journey as best as possible.
Yeah. And what has been one of the biggest or the toughest challenges you guys have encountered? Still at an early age you guys are. What has been the biggest lesson you guys have come across? Besides the break-ins and stuff.
There's so many. I think just understanding that there are going to be fires every single day.
Yeah.
And if you aren't fixing it, it's not going to fix itself.
Yeah.
So there's no one really that you can call. There's a lot of support structures, but there's no big boss that you can pick up the phone to and say, hey, stuff's going wrong here. Fix it, please. You're the one who has to fix it.
Yeah.
So that kind of responsibility is, like I said earlier, but very rewarding, but also very, very scary. But I think being able to prioritize focus on aspects that are going to continually grow the business rather than all the noise is something that I'm continually trying to improve and learn upon every sort of day. So there are so many different aspects to growing a business, and especially while we're in the early stages without a team of 100 people to handle all the different micro tasks. Being able to focus and prioritize which ones are actually effective, which one's going to make or break kind of the results of kind of the day or the month or the year, and how do we put the systems in place that will allow us to continually grow while iteratively passing on and kind of delegating those peripheral things just to keep the wheel sort of turning. So I know it's a weird, nuanced sort of answer there, but kind of just that prioritization is a very difficult skill for me to particularly focus on and learn.
When times get tough, when times get tough holistically, what keeps you going? Like, what is your why? Like, for me, for an example, when obviously I am an employee, I work for someone. It's always difficult to work for someone sometimes, but I've been fortunate enough, the company I work for now, there's less of those times because they're understanding and there's a lot of support structures, which helps. But my why for me has always been my family. Like, I will always look back and be like, I'm going through a tough time. And I look back on my phone, look at a photo of my family, and I'm doing it for these people. Like, can't give up on them. Like, what are you doing? Like, you can't just slack on them. You can't just sleep long. That's my why. Like, what keeps you, like, what makes sure that you don't say, nah, but today I'm throwing it in. Like, I'm throwing the towel in. Like,
such an amazing answer to try and follow there.
Because I know it can be difficult, man. Like, I know, like, we can sit here, have a brave face, but as you said, fires happen,
times.
man.
They're very tough times, and they're definitely days where you sit and think, what is the point of kind of continuing on there?
But you do continue.
Yeah, I think I bring it back to kind of the sports sort of metaphor, where I just want to prove, like, how good can you be at this and how much can you sort of withstand. So if you equate kind of like, look at like a LeBron James sort of example, like, if you want to be the best in the world, you need to work the hardest out of every single person. And there are going to be obstacles there. There are going to be injuries. There are going to be, things that go drastically wrong. But if you want to be that top 1% of the 1%, you need to be outworking every single other person there. Yeah. So every time kind of things get tough, I'm like, how many people would stop here? And that's kind of a motivating sort of factor. Okay, cool. A lot of people would have stopped right here. I'm going to keep going. That's going to get me kind of over the line there. That's going to be the differentiator. It might not have the results instantaneously, but those small actions compounded over a long period of time is what's going to be the differentiator between being the mid-level performers and being the ones that actually sort of make it. Because I think entrepreneurship and business is a lot like sort of the sports sort of arena. We just don't necessarily recognize that the whole time. If you want to be the best, you've got to be working harder than every single other person.
Time as well,
and get really lucky along the way.
Yeah.
But that luck only comes if you're working your ass off the whole way through. So those tough sort of moments, I think if you just view them as opportunities to outwork everyone, that's kind of the inspiration that I'm like, okay, cool, this is worth it. Like, maybe it's just a bad mentality to have the work addict sort of viewpoint, but I love that sort of feeling of knowing that we're capable of outworking or pushing through challenges a lot more than other people might be able to. I think that's really a nice motivator to have.
That's awesome. That really resonates with me as well, man.
And my family.
Yeah, of course. That's awesome, man. So also, while we're on the entrepreneurial side of things and how we view it, I'm sure there's obviously been some big projects you've executed, big contracts you've been able to sign. What has been one or two of those successes that you guys have had? Two. Give me two.
It's interesting because, like, in the space that we're in, we're kind of connecting people to each other. So anytime a big project or something comes in, it's not necessarily like we've landed it. We're essentially connecting the people to each other. So it's super exciting, like working with brands like Woolworths and Freedom of Movement and stuff. Those have been awesome because suddenly you see your work from creators on the platform and stuff coming through on, you know, every mall and shopping center that you're walking through. And that's really amazing. But also at the time kind of seeing the creators and the community that we're kind of creating is also one of the really rewarding sort of aspects. Recently, we were very, very fortunate to be the winners of a Zero Business Fund competition. We actually had a dinner with them last night with their global CEO, which was very, very cool.
What is
Zero is an accounting platform. They basically run accounting software to help like manage a lot of different books and stuff.
Yeah.
And they ran a global competition kind of across everywhere, and they announced a couple of regional winners, and we were very fortunate to be one of those in I think the category they named it was Upskilling for the Future, which was focused on the community and system of improving the skills of the content creators on our platform and being recognized by a massive sort of global company in that sort of arena, and something that we're trying to build was a really, really exciting thing or benchmark to sort of see then, okay, cool. It's not just us being crazy on our heads. Other people, you know, potentially also see the potential in what we're building and the value that we're trying to create.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so that was super exciting.
Yeah, that is. So you guys are registered, with SIPS?
Sipsy, yeah. That's a couple years behind. Actually now, yeah. Don't bring me onto taxes. I'm gonna get grumpy about having to pay taxes. But yeah, no, all the registrations and all the red tape about the whole business thing is also one of the distracting sort of factors where it has to happen, but it doesn't really give any inherent value to what you're sort of doing. So it's more just regulatory steps that you have to step through and not mess up along the way that cause unnecessary delays.
Do you guys have like someone for business who you look to for help or guidance? Or like a mentor, if I can call it that?
I think we've got so many people that have given small bits of information sort of along the way. We don't have necessarily a particular individual that we go to for regular sort of coaching sessions or anything like that. Yeah. It's more just all the business owners that we've met along the way. We have chats about their challenges, their opportunities, what they've done, what's helped them. People that we know from the Residence Alumni Network who have given tidbits of information from the been there, done that stories. They've been exceptionally helpful. So no specific sort of mentors like that would actually like say, okay, you're my mentor, I'm your mentee sort of relationship. But so many people that have offered guidance and help sort of along the way that only really appreciate when you kind of get past a certain point. You're like, that's what they meant. That makes sense. So those small little bits is helping us, but really it's been about kind of just working really hard and kind of learning along the way.
Where do you want to take Curate in the next 5 years? Where do you want to see it?
Next 5 years is really to hopefully build out the automated technology facets about our sort of business model and scale it hopefully to at least serve content creators across South Africa. And hopefully if we put all the right building blocks in place, there's no reason why we can't scale this model across the world globally as well. So that's a massive and very ambitious sort of target to sort of set, but we've got very big dreams and expectations of what we can do and the people we can impact sort of with the Curate platform. So unless, you know, anything goes drastically wrong, which again is our fault, that's the plan for what we want to do with Curate.
No, wish you all the best, and I'll be watching closely.
Thank you.
And for those of you who don't know, Matt himself is a influencer, content creator. It was funny yesterday. So you tagged Edgar on Instagram after I ran. He comes out the shower to me, or he goes out the shower, he goes to the room, he comes out, he's like, yo, in his Spanish accent, yo, I can't put it on, but he's like, yo, Matt, I got a lot of followers, on Instagram. I'm like, Yes. I was like, you must check his TikTok though. He's like, well, I'm like, he told me he got 1 million. He's like, what?
Yeah, no, the TikTok thing was a kind of an experiment that went a little bit too far. Obviously, during lockdown, there was so many things that were just manically happening that I was kind of like, okay, cool, new social media, TikToks kind of popped up. How can I really, experiment with what works and resonates well on this platform? Because then I can understand it and translate that information to the creators that then have to produce content for businesses and people that we work with. So I decided, okay, cool, the comedy niche is going to be the one that's the easiest and most generic to produce content from. You can learn the quickest from it. And then all of a sudden you blink and then there are a couple of people watching, and it's gone a bit too far, and I've got a wig on and I'm putting on accents and, whole new personalities are emerging that I didn't even know were inside. So that was kind of put the comedy side a little bit behind for now, but it was really exciting to kind of grow that presence and produce content that seemingly resonated with people, particularly during the COVID sort of years. But it's a wonderful blessing to have a whole community of people that can give you feedback on content in a social media sort of sense, because they can then understand, okay, how do you craft and tell stories in this environment as well?
Yes. So you started on Instagram, and you had a big following there. How did you? Because I guess you started with content creation or putting it out there way before it became such a mainstream thing. Like Instagram started
I think it was 2011. 2011, yeah.
But then I think I remember I met you 2020 or 2021, but you already had like 27,000 followers or something. How long did it take you to get there, and what was what did you do to be able to?
Instagram, I don't think I ever quite figured out 100%. It was kind of just from posting little aesthetic photos and videos from little travel missions along the way, and you kind of develop a kind of community of people that are interested in that sort of content, but it only grew to a limited sort of facet. But then with the whole sort of explosion on TikTok that happened when I was producing all the comedy stuff, there was such an overflow from that naturally sort of the Instagram platform also grew kind of alongside that. It's had very little translation to actual kind of engagement necessarily with people, but it's a fantastic community to have, to know that, okay, cool, there are people that are interested in watching that, and there's obviously value that can be created from providing them with that content.
So you have analytics on both platforms, TikTok and Instagram. How long? Okay, firstly, before you started with the comedy skits, how many followers did you have, and what was the period until you got to 1 million?
That was
rapid. 1 million's nightmare, bro.
It was rapid. So I think I'd started, I think January 2020. I posted a video and it did okay-ish.
And how many had followers? Was it followers called on TikTok followers still?
Yeah, TikTok followers. I was obviously 0.
Really?
Yeah, and then kind of created a video like every second week or so, and I think I'd gotten it to about 2,000, 3,000 odd people from 1 or 2 videos, which had randomly gone off a little bit. I think there was a video where I was running around with a wig and a shirt on, dancing with toast or something stupid. But then lockdown sort of happened, and I was like, okay, cool, I can't really focus on a lot of other different things. Let me give this a full sort of push. So let me be that top 1% of the 1%. Let me, even if the quality isn't there, let me put in the effort. So for 3 months straight, I posted 3 videos a day, every single day.
At certain times, specific times?
Loosely, kind of just not so that they were just all on top of each other, but obviously trying to capitalize on.
For a month straight?
For 3 months straight. So it's a big effort, and I kind of underestimated how much time that would actually take, but really gave it a proper go. Obviously, you film in batches, so you film like 20 or 30 different videos, and then you've got the kind of posting, and then you edit everything out. And so if you do everything sequentially, it's a lot easier to do than trying to come up with 3 concepts every day and shoot them and edit them and post them, because then it's just exhausting.
So you've got to be anymore.
Yeah, you've got to be efficient with the system to make sure that you can actually keep up with it. Otherwise, it just drains you. But gave that a proper effort. And it took kind of those 3 months, it probably took a month or so to get to about 10,000, then about another month to get to 100,000, and then another month to get to 1 million. So it really went exponential. It flew.
Crazy.
And once you kind of hit a sort of recipe that worked, it was just rinse and repeat and do it again and again and again. Kind of like putting in reps in the gym. You just got to do it again and again and again. And every time improve. And then it resonated really, really nicely. And I was so privileged that it really, really grew a lot. But then when COVID sort of tapped down a little bit, I really wanted to put all my efforts into growing the actual business. So stepped away from the personal content creation a little bit. But it's still something that I definitely want to come back to as much as possible. It's just about 100%. Finding the right avenues to now translate or shift away from the comedy style and bring it into what am I actually doing in business that's bringing value to people? How can I actually provide value to them? Can I educate in some way, or can I at least share aspects from the journey of lessons that I've learned, whether it's resonating for other ones or not? It's helped me, so hopefully I can help someone else a little bit sooner along the way.
100%. I know you got a meeting in 20 minutes, so 5 more minutes, and then so while we're still at that, so I know now, having been in Europe for like over a year, let's say the influencers there and the content creators, they can make decent amount of euros from that. I mean, if you already have your mainstream income, like your normal job, and you have this as a side hustle, can be some nice holiday money. Are there opportunities as South African, if you do have somewhat of a following, a big following, to capitalize and make passive income?
I think if you're strategic about it, definitely. I unfortunately am not strategic about it, so I've definitely got lessons to learn there. But I know several people sort of in the industry that have built an amazing sort of career out of the content that they're posting and the value that they're bringing other people through that. So there are definitely avenues to explore it, not as much as in the US or sort of European markets, definitely. I think there's a lot more opportunity and willingness to provide capital there for that sort of online presence. The South African sort of creators, generally they're tied to having a South African audience, and that monetization of the South African audience generally isn't as valuable to businesses.
Yes.
So having that sort of shift in mindset, I think, is something that's a couple of years behind and will take a while to catch on. But there's definitely opportunities to be explored there. It's just about, okay, cool, you're now really good at one thing, producing content. Are you really good at being the business person behind that and turning that content brand into a systemized thing that can bring value to businesses as well? Because people aren't just going to give you for money for the sake of it.
100%.
You've got to be bringing them business return as well. So understanding how to do that is an entirely different art as well, and something that I'm trying to learn to do better, but is a very difficult thing to be valuable to companies as well, not just valuable to the audience that you're doing. But obviously, you don't just have to do that in terms of having companies sponsor you for stuff. I think there's a lot of opportunity to also bring value to your audience and potentially produce an online product for them or something like that. But again, it's a lot of effort to do that, and you've got to make sure that you're not taking any people that are engaging with your stuff or content for granted.
Yeah.
They're the ones that have got you there, so you need to be bringing value to them. If you're not producing something that is of value, then you do not deserve to be making any sort of monetary return from that.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of opportunity to answer it shortly. It's just about finding the right ways to address it.
Okay. No, good. Okay, so just to wrap up, it's been lovely chatting to you, but we can chat for days. I just want to touch now, come back full circle to the business side of things, because you shifted away from what you studied, pursued business and something that you enjoyed, a passion that you had. What is your advice to someone who is passionate about something, but fears to seek it? Like, what would you say to them?
The worst that is going to happen is absolutely nothing is going to change. So you might as well give it a full-on effort. If you give it your all and you don't succeed, then at least you know. But if you don't try it, you're always going to sit there wondering. So I think that fear of regret should be a massive motivator, and understanding that the worst that happens is nothing's really going to change, so what's the harm in trying it? The only thing that can really go wrong is you're going to expend a lot of effort and not really get anything back. But again, you're going to learn so much along the way that might lead to other opportunities. So I think that's a nice motivator to really try things and not be fearful about anything.
Love that, bro. Don't know how I can top that, but any last words?
Last words, not necessarily, but it's been such a pleasure having a catch-up chat as well. It's always a blessing when you're this side of the world, so it's really, really exciting. And thank you for having me on.
No, thank you for taking your time. Firstly, as I said, the setup's unreal, and the mics. When I came, I came prepared, but I just felt that my audio was just lacking. So I was like, I need me reach out to you and just check if anyone who could help out, and you helped out. Thank you very much for that. And Matt, thanks once again for being like an inspiration to seek what you enjoy, to everyone to say, like, go for it, like, do it. What's the worst thing can happen?
Exactly.
So, and I live by that as well. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, okay, someone might say no. And rejection is part of life sometimes, learning or failures are part of life of learning. So thanks for always, bro, thanks for this opportunity, and thanks for our friendship. And yeah, nothing else you want to say?
No, I think that's fantastic. Thanks, Sizwe.
Awesome. And guys, thanks for listening and watching, and catch you on the next one.